Thanks for staying with us. It's still unclear if the budget that was tabled by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana will get the nod. Godongwana tabled the budget earlier this month, but soon afterwards, the Democratic Alliance, remember, rejected it earlier today. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula saying that the negotiations are currently taking place. So let's get the very latest now. Karabo Khakhau, DA spokesperson, joins us live now for more. Karabo, good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. Have you reached an agreement?
Good evening, Osbongi, and good evening to your viewers. No, I can confirm that as of 1:30 today, there is no deal. Essentially, the ANC is telling us that they're not willing to hear anything that we are telling them that can be fixed with the budget, that will protect South Africans, that will grow the economy, create jobs, and bridge the inequality gap that exists in this country, which is what we've tabled. And they are threatening to end the GNU by seeking other partners outside of the partners in the GNU, ourselves in particular, to pass the budget. So it is very important, Usbongiwe, for South Africans to understand what is happening here. The Democratic Alliance has said that is not good for South Africans. And we've said the budget in its current form does not give South Africans an opportunity to grow the economy. But that there is an alternative way of making sure that that budget can be passed, that at the heart of it sees South Africans being able to put food on the table for themselves and their families. And instead of taking that, the ANC has chosen their own political arrogance. They've chosen political power and political control to protect the interests of the ANC, a 39% political party, mind you, instead of South Africans. And now the GNU is at risk of collapsing because of that.
Karabo, if I heard you correctly, you're saying that it's the ANC that's saying they are threatening to end the GNU.
Yes, the ANC says that they are going to be seeking somebody else outside of the GNU to be doing this, and which means that they don't want to work with us at all. And we don't want that to happen, obviously, because we understand that the ANC, South Africans are safer with the Democratic Alliance in it. There's no way you can choose the EFF or anybody else whose policies are disastrous for the country at the expense of the country.
If you're saying that the better option is yourselves, how do you move forward if you're not agreeing?
That's the thing. That's the point.
So the reality, though, Karabo, is that chances of this, things may get to a point where things collapse and it ends, whether you regard yourselves as the best option or not.
Yes, because they're refusing to work with us completely. They're not negotiating at all. They pretty much told us that it's either their way, the hard way, and we must find our way out of the equation, because they don't want to take simple solutions such as reducing wasteful expenditure within the government purse, which is a sensible solution to give, cutting down on corruption and fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which is a sensible alternative to give to them, having a pro-jobs and a pro-economic growth budget, which is a sensible alternative to give altogether.
Were those the only bargaining tools that you put on the table?
So we put multiple things on the table. So from the onset, we were negotiating to say, what is the best framework that we can use to make sure that if you want to be able to tax South Africans, that South Africans won't be able to feel the pinch of the taxation altogether. And we said, if we are able to see in the next 3 years a reduction altogether, a relaxation of tax for South Africans, if you are able to make concessions on the on concessionings on our rail and freight in the port in Cape Town harbors, for example, which would be able to contribute about 5% of our GDP, which we're losing by them not being as active as they're supposed to be, then perhaps we can have a different conversation altogether. But it is ridiculous to not want to have a budget that is centered on making sure that South Africans can be able to benefit from a growing economy, and then still be bold enough to think you can charge the same South Africans more money for putting food on the table and basic essentials.
What about the suggestions,
we need to look at economic policies.
Pardon me. What about the suggestions, though, that this was more about politics than it was about the poor of the country? And I ask this because there is a view from, of course, some who are saying that you were using the NHI, the Bella Act, as a bargaining chip to say that you want these gone in order for you to be able then to back this particular budget. And that's where possibly the sticking points could have been.
That is absolutely not true. There's no such. Let me tell you why I say so, right? The Bella Act was never part of the conversation because you would know that the minister who's currently responsible for rolling out regulations relating to the act is a DA minister. So we're fine. Sibiwe is busy with whatever she's busy with, and we'll be able to review when she's done. So that was not part of the conversation. The issue of the NHI, we agreed that the NHI was going to be off the table as far as the medium-term budget statement is concerned, and you would know that in the communication from government, in the MTBP, that it wasn't there. To our surprise, we saw that there was a smuggling in altogether via a gazette about 5 weeks later of that altogether. And in a separate communication, we raised the issue to say, but this doesn't make sense. We agreed that we are not going to be dealing with this matter right now with the NHI. We're not going to have it as part of their priorities. So why is it there altogether? So what the ANC is doing here by selling propaganda is trying to shy away from taking responsibility of the fact that the budget as it stands does not work for South Africans. The budget as it stands does not increase revenue collection. The budget as it stands does not expand our economy, and it doesn't safeguard South Africans. And because they politically cannot spin their way out of it, the only best solution that they can is to try to spew propaganda to say the Democratic Alliance wants concessions here and there about other things. So but that's just not true.
Are the negotiations over? Is this it?
Yeah.
So are you prepared then for the possibility that if you're not finding each other, you're prepared for the possibility of going back to the opposition benches?
Look, if we must, sure, but that's not what we want. Again, I want to reiterate this. Again, at the heart of why the Democratic Alliance entered the government of national unity is the understanding that the ANC is incapable of themselves being able to lead this country into an economic trajectory that benefits South Africans. They've shown us in the past 31 years that they are unable to do so. And we know for a fact that if they were to work with the EFF, that would even result in a more disastrous conclusion altogether for South Africans. And that's why we've been fighting so hard. And that's why it is so disheartening, Usbongiwe, that when we have in good faith been coming to the table to say, look, we still don't agree, but here's what we can share. We should be able to share the power on the economic trajectory of this country and its policies. And for the ANC to say no altogether, coming from a political party where we govern alone as the Democratic Alliance, we're sitting with a below 19%, with a below 20% unemployment rate. It's nonsensical, and it clearly indicates that here, it's not about South Africans having an economy where they can have jobs in, where people can put food on the table. It is totally about being able to control power of the ANC that they do not have, and that we can't have that.
Is it about that, or also the issue of transformation? Because when you listen to some of what the ANC has to say, is that there is an issue of transformation here, and South Africa needs to apply redress as quickly as possible, because you are seeing what is taking place as far as transformation is concerned. And if then they say, this is some of them, say that if they do not apply some of these policies, they then are going to see a regression as far as the issue of transformation is concerned. So when it comes to that, how do you begin then to break the bottleneck? Because the issue of redress is quite an important one in this country.
You and I agree, and there's no sober human being who subscribes to democratic ideals, who is a constitutionalist of this country, who can disagree with the principle of the need of transformation in this country. What we do not agree with altogether is the method in which the manner in which they're trying to seek that. I'm going to make an example again on expropriation, for example, Usbongi. What the ANC's Expropriation Act seeks to achieve is to say, you and I as black female-bodied beings in this country, if we, by God's grace, can own a shopping center that employs people in a township, if Any day the state wakes up tomorrow, for public good, they decide that they want to use the land upon which our shopping center is built to build either a school, a clinic, or a government office, then in the name of public good, they will have a legitimate legislative reason to do so, depending on who the power of government at the day is. And if you and I disagree on the value attached to our shopping center, you and I, Osbongiwe, then it is incumbent on us to go to court to fight the state on a value that is attached on the municipality books. That is not transformative.
But who should it be incumbent upon? Because if you are the one that says this is the value, surely you should take that fight on. It can't be the responsibility of somebody else to take the fight that you want to wage.
That's where you and I disagree, because when you and I take our money to go to court to fight the state, it's a waste of resources.
But if the state takes you to court, you still need to use money to defend yourself. So you end up in court either way.
No, hear me. The alternative, Osbongiwe, is that innately in the system we're supposed to have a mediatory framework that does not cost either the state or you and I court fees to go and do all of those things. But we shouldn't even be able to get to a point where we're supposed to have a mediatory conversation about that altogether, because there is no state that is supposed to have unvetted power altogether. The power of the magnitude of the apartheid government to wake up and decide in the name of public good which land must be used where. What we want as an alternative altogether is to make sure that in the same spirit that we are trying to bridge the gap, the inequality gap as far as land ownership is concerned in this country, in the same way that we want to honor Section 25 of the Constitution, we can't do so at the compromise of private property rights, because that's where we are, particularly when the land is already in possession of so much land that they are not using, and in cases where they've given people land but that land comes without security of tenure, of title deeds altogether, rendering people useless owners of states of land that they can't call theirs.
All right.
But that's not the conversation right now. The conversation here that I urge South Africans to also have an understanding of is that all of these conversations about other policies can happen separate to the budget process altogether. That's why our tabling of a six-pronged solution alternative to reconfiguring the current structure of the budget includes the reduction of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, being able to fire ghost workers altogether, because we know that PRASA alone's audit told us that at least 10% of their workforce doesn't exist. That's where you loosen money. That's how you save South Africans from tax.
So, Karabo, we'll give the ANC a right of reply on this one, because as you say, you're claiming that they are threatening to end the GNU and all of that. We certainly need to hear from them on what is happening there. But thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. That was Karabo Khakhau, the DA spokesperson. She says that there is no deal. The negotiations have ended. It doesn't seem like, according to her, the budget is going ahead, and saying that the ANC is threatening to walk away from the GNU, to end it and seek other partners to work with. So we'll definitely chase the ANC for a right of reply on this one.